Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. So it's that time of day again where we do the daily deck build around any cards that we were able to unlock for the day. And so I do have some good news. We're able to pull 3 cards today because we were able to complete the weekly challenge. So before I jump into pulling the cards, if this is the first video of mine that you've seen and you like what you see, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I do daily Marvel Snap content around different deck builds, and then as we progress from the closed beta to the open beta, my content will expand and grow as the game grows. So if you like what you see, make sure that you subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into the card pulls. Like I said, we do have 3. So the first one, we will open it now. Let's hope for something really good. I'm really happy with the way yesterday's turned out. So come on, yeah, Yellow Jacket. So this is one of the ones from yesterday's video that I was talking about dreading. So this is a 0 cost, 2 power card. On reveal, afflict your other cards at this location with -1 power. I don't. How does this get into pool 3? I just can't. I can't see it. I can't see it. So that one's a dud. We'll go ahead and hope for something better in the other 2. If not, we'll find a way to make it work. Okay, so Rock Slide. Rock Slide, on reveal, shuffle 2 useless rocks into your deck. I think in a normal build, this is subpar. So you have some really powerful 4-drop cards that would get or exceed 6 power. And so I think this would be good. I have an idea that I've been working around of a junk deck where we just blast the opponent's board with junk. But we need something else. We need like a green goblin or something else to kind of stall out the opponent or send things over to their side. And so Rock Slide might be a good addition to that list. But as is, I don't know that I have anything in mind just off the top of my head that we could use him for. And so it all comes down to this last card. Let's hope for something really, really good, something game-changing, something deck-defining. Okay, so Colleen Wing. Not one that I would say is like top tier or good, but I do have a loose idea of what we could use this for. I don't think it would be a top tier deck, but what we could use Colleen Wing for. So on reveal, she discards the lowest cost card from your hand. And so this is kind of like a reverse Lady Sif, where Lady Sif will discard the highest cost card. She's going to discard the lowest. So what we could use this for is for a swarm deck. So swarm being, once it's discarded, it becomes 0 cost, returns to your hand, and it duplicates. So you discard 1, you get 2 back in return. They both cost 0. So what we could use this for is a buff type deck where we buff up swarm, we try to get it discarded, and then Colleen's Wing to duplicate it. So that may be what I end up trying to build. Because Rock Slide, I don't have the resources that I need to make it in the deck that I want to. And then Yellow Jacket, again, that one speaks for itself. I can't think of a single reason why this would be good. It fills up a space in your deck, so it makes the rest of your draws a little more inconsistent. Do you really struggle with getting 2 power onto the board? No, and if you draw him late, that's a rough card. It's a really, really rough card. So I think looking at the 3 cards that I pulled, we're going to have to build a Colleen Wing deck. And so give me just a second. I'll jump over into the deck build and we can kind of start putting something together. Okay, so let's go ahead and get Colleen Wing in our deck. And then we're going to go with some other like common discard cards. So Moon Knight. On reveal, discard a card from each player's hand. This one's a pretty cool pull 3 card, but I just haven't got things, to build around it to make it phenomenal. And then we definitely want our common buff cards, being Nakia. All right, there we go. And then being the 2 power Okoi. Okay, and so then I'm going to go ahead and put Swarm into our deck. I'm temporarily going to put Morbius in there. I want to look at him a little bit further. So he's a card that ongoing plus 2 power for each card you discarded from your hand this game. So I think he has a unique use, but I want to kind of talk through if he is viable or if he's going to be beneficial versus some other card. So next up, we have Swarm. When this is discarded from your hand, add 2 0-cost copies. So this is going to be like the primary function of this deck. And then we can throw Wolverine. So when this is discarded or destroyed, play it at a random location. I think that helps with a mass discard deck. For now, do I throw Lady Sif in? So I think I do, and I think I throw in an Apocalypse so that we can discard cards over and over again. In addition, I have pulled Hellcow, which on reveal discards 2 cards from your hand. This can be a big proponent for expanding your Swarm army, and so I'm going to go ahead and add Hellcow. Be really good in like a Hela deck, but I haven't unlocked Hela, unfortunately. So then we have Sword Guy. Sword Guy being a 4 energy, 7 power card that on reveal discard random card from your hand. So he fits into the theme of what we're wanting to go with on this deck. Next up, we have the 6 cost 8 power Apocalypse that we're going to add to the deck. When you discard this from your hand, you put it back with +4 power. And so looking at just our kind of brief idea, we have 1 slot left. We have a couple of cards that typically go into a like a discard deck. We could potentially have a Nova Carnage, but I don't want to run that. We also have Blade, but we have a lot of discard in our deck already. So we're just going to be ending up discarding discard cards because we won't have a consistent way to discard what we need. And we need to have some decent power across the other lanes to make this viable. And so it might sound strange, but do we go with something like not a Devil Dinosaur? I don't want to do that again. So Ghost Rider may seem like an obvious choice to throw in because on reveal, bring back one of your discarded cards to this location. But with this deck, we are discarding so wide. We're just discarding as much as we can that Ghost Rider doesn't necessarily feel. You're going to pull just some random card and then probably discard additional cards because of it, and it just doesn't feel as good. So do we ever add an Iron Man into here? So my thought process was we need a win condition for 2 lanes. So Apocalypse, we may be able to get him high enough that he swings us one of the lanes, but how do we get the other lane? And so looking at it, we have Morbius. If we end up discarding, so it's a 2 cost 0 power, but it gets +2 every time you discard a card. If we discard 4 cards in a game, that becomes a 2/4. So it becomes almost consistent with our strong guy. So we would have to discard 5 cards per game to make Morbius worthwhile. And I think we'll do that. I think with the Swarm deck, once we get the Swarm multiplied, we'll be able to drop Colleen. We can guarantee that, so that'd be at least 2. And then most of our other cards kind of target that discard effect. But do we have enough cards that will generate in hand? Because this is really going to rely on duplicating Swarm. Because if we don't have Swarm that we're duplicating, we're going to run out of cards pretty quickly, except for maybe an Apocalypse. Do we ever go with like an Iron Man in this scenario? Because Iron Man is a pretty good win condition. It seems like, because you unlock him so early, he's often overlooked. But Iron Man can really swing a lane if we have a 12 power Morbius, so we discarded 6 cards somehow. If we have even a 10 power, dropping him, not dropping Iron Man, if that's the only other card in the lane, he becomes a 10 power. Is there any other card slot that we would have that would give us that much upside? I don't think there is, and I think we need a win condition to swing a second lane. Apocalypse should do a good enough job swinging 1 lane on his own, and then that other card would kind of be there to kind of help with that. So just realize I didn't explain why I had Nakia and Okoi. So what we want is Swarm to be duplicated. So once we discard him, it's going to add 2 copies of that card with that power to your hand. So let's say he starts out at 3, we buff him with Okoi, so he becomes 5. We buff him with Nakia, he becomes 7. So that is once we discard him, he's going to duplicate as 2 0-cost 7s. If we discard him again, he's going to be 4 0-cost 7s, so on and so forth. And so you can make a really big last turn, and that's what this deck is really pushing for. And so with 7 cost, it would be nice to have Iron Man, but actually Wolverine doesn't... A 2 power, 3 cost card, I've never been overly impressed with Wolverine. So what I'm thinking is we drop in a Scarlet Witch. And so the reason behind it, we have... Not Elektra. We don't need Elektra. So the reason behind potentially choosing and teching in Scarlet Witch or Storm or Rhino or any card that can destroy a lane or change a lane in your favor is we have a new featured location as of today's update, being the Space Throne. So the Space Throne appears more often, and what this location is designed for is only 1 card can be played here for each player. So yes, we could drop an Apocalypse there, but what we want, we're wanting to swarm the board. If we're not able to swarm the board, like that takes away 3 of our potential 7 power card slots that are just no longer available to us. And yes, it does the same thing for the opponent, but I think because we're going with like a wide buff deck, we want that to be available. And so I could go with a Storm, but what I want to do is change it for a low cost so that I can also maybe follow up with like a sword master that turn, or even like a Colleen Wing or something similar, so that I can do multiple things in a turn. At 3 cost, it's not incredibly expensive, but it is harder to do other things in that turn. So the general idea behind this deck is that we want to buff up our Swarm really before, if we have those in hand, we want to do that before dropping any of our discard cards. If we don't have like a Nakia in hand, but we do have Swarm, we can go ahead and drop our discard cards, because if it does hit Swarm, once we drop our buff, it's going to be the same thing it would have been anyways, and we already have it duplicated. So then it becomes even more beneficial and a little more sneaky of a strategy. And so let's do like one more pass through. So of course, with this card wanting to discard as many cards as you can, it is going to be a lower mana curve. I think in previous iterations I have run a Moon Girl, but if you're duplicating Swarm, and let's say you have 3-4 Swarms in your hand already, you're not going to be able to Moon Girl anything impactful. So it becomes really tough to play, and a lot of times a dead card. So I think in this scenario, an Iron Man is going to be more beneficial because it can really swing a lane that you're on the ropes for, or that you're competing for. And then Scarlet Witch to change our location. Everything else is really focused around discarding. And so it will take a little luck. I don't know that this is going to be the most consistent deck that could be built. It's not going to be a Devil Dinosaur collector, but I think it'll be fun. I think it'll make for some really crazy swings. Once we get the discards going, I could see concedes happening. If they know that we have 5 0-cost 7 power Swarms in our hand, it's going to be hard for them to compete. And so let's name the deck real fast, and then we'll create the graphics and then jump in. All right, so just to point out a cheeky little dad joke, I named it Is It Cold? No, it's Swarm. I'll see myself out. All right, so we're going up against Geo Tracker. So on reveal ability effects happen twice at this location. This is fantastic. So what this is going to be able to do for us, our Nakia. Our Nakia is going to become a +2, so it's going to become a +4. If we can drop Okoi before we draw into Swarm, it's going to be even better. And then we can even drop Colleen Wing, which will discard our lowest cost card twice. So if we have Swarm, that becomes a huge card. So Bar with No Name is probably going to be a point where we will drop Scarlet Witch. I don't want to drop it quite yet, because I want to see what this last location is to see if it's something more important. It's not. So now I don't really want to drop anything that's going to discard cards until I draw into Swarm, because then I can drop my Nakia and I can start dropping discard cards so that I can trigger the Swarm effect. But until then, it feels risky, because I might drop my Nakia and then we're just gonna have a whole bunch of 2/3s, which are not gonna get us what we need. Like we're just not gonna get there off of 2/3s. We need them to be like big cards. And so he dropped a Deathlock. We dropped our Scarlet Witch. We do have a Lady Sif, which is interesting. We're going to be able to target Apocalypse twice. And so this one being that it guarantees which card is discarded, I'm okay with playing it. Because I'm not playing this one necessarily for the stat line. I'm playing it for the on-reveal ability, and the stat line is just a bonus. And so this one is automatically going to become a 12, a 16. And so then if we get lucky kind of throughout the rest of the game, it may become even larger. So if we drop Nakia, well, I guess next turn would be when that would be decided. So we have our Lady Sif, and it's important to note that the way that this interaction works is it will still discard that Apocalypse. So the discard effect of Apocalypse triggers before the second on reveal, so I was able to discard Apocalypse twice. And so now we are in a bit of a pickle. So we can do something like this, because we're going to have to drop Apocalypse next turn, because we don't have something like a Dracula that's going to be able to trigger at the end of the game. If so, we would have this deck structured a lot differently if that's what we had in our deck. So the question becomes, I can win one lane with Apocalypse. I don't doubt that. And it may become that we end up dropping like a Moon Knight and Colleen Wing just because they're going to be buffed up twice. Oh no, we're going to discard them, aren't we? Yeah, because it's going to discard a lot of cards. Ooh. I think this is... we're going to make a huge Apocalypse. We're going to make this thing gigantic. And kind of see where we go. So they do only have cards in 2 locations. They know that they have this one. Do they have a double Nova now? It'd be really late. It'd only impact a handful of people. And so we're targeting our Apocalypse so many times. This thing is huge, and I'm this thing is that 28? Is that 28? It's really, really bright. I think it's 28. Up at the top, you can... Okay, no, I can't scroll over. Oh, so that could be interesting. So, do I do something like that? So how many cards have we discarded this game? Probably enough to make this thing like a 16. Moon Knight's going to drop... we will have cards to discard with Moon Knight because of the way Apocalypse functions. He's always going to be in our hand. So we could drop Morbius here. And this thing is going to be huge. We can add 7 power here in case he has a double Nova. Double Nova Carnage. I think that's the play we go. We give up on this middle lane just because of it turned into Mojo World. So I'm curious how big our Morbius is going to be here. So Squirrel Girl, that's a weird card to have and to drop on this last turn. So Electra, that's okay. We're not going for a win in that lane. And then it does look like they probably have a Carnage because they're going to trigger Bucky Barnes. Yep. Okay. So I think we win this. Morbius is going to be, I'm going to say 14 to 16. No, I'm going to say 16 to 18 power. Just off of a rough guess of how much we discarded this game. And so our Apocalypse becomes 36. We didn't play him. If we had a Dracula that was on the board, he would pull it, he would discard it and get that power. So it is 16, which is a massive Morbius. That's the biggest Morbius I've seen by far. And so we did end up winning. I'm not sure exactly how GeoTracker's deck was structured. It did have a Devil Dinosaur, did have some Nova Carnage combos, but I'm not sure what else was in there. But the Morbius being that big just felt so phenomenal. But it feels bad that I'm not able to drop the Apocalypse as easily. And so maybe we'll get lucky. I think a lot of it depends on kind of how things get discarded, what you draw, locations that you get, things like that. In our opening hand, we do draw into Nakia, and then just some of our discard engines, and then it is the Space Throne this time around. So what I'm thinking we're going to see from a lot of players is that they're going to run something like Hobgoblin, or if they were lucky and pulled Green Goblin, we're going to see them run Green Goblin to play in this lane and send over into the opponent's lane. That way it kind of locks them out of that lane. They can play any small card and they're going to win that location. And so I don't have the Green Goblin, or else I would probably run it in just about every single one of my decks at this point, just while this location is a hot location. And so we did draw Swarm. So I think it is okay now to drop our Nakia, and then we'll start dropping some of our other bigger cards. So I think I want to play Swordmaster. And so definitely want to play Swordmaster because we're only going to be able to drop one card next turn. So we might as well drop the most expensive. And Deathlock comes in. I'm glad we didn't have anything high priority. I'm not really worried about losing a 1-power Nakia. And they have a Morbius, which is probably a dead draw for them. But it's interesting that that's what they pulled. Okay, and so with Wave going off, all of our cards are going to cost 4. That's okay. Do we drop Swordmaster? Potentially. I like Moon Knight being able to trigger them to discard a card, but I do want to get some power onto the board to kind of put some of that pressure out there. And so we ended up discarding Moon Knight. If we discard Colleen Wing, it becomes a little more difficult. So that is a massive card. I've never seen anyone actually run it, so I wonder if maybe they just unlocked it. It looks like they probably... No, never mind. That was generated by expansion. I was just kidding. Never mind. So, if we... How do we play this? So I know that we want to drop this, or do we? Do we discard several cards, do something like Hell Cow and Colleen Wing and Scarlet Witch, which will ensure that Hell Cow is going to discard this and probably this, or probably both of those. It could trigger this twice or this twice, but something along those lines. Colleen Wing, even if Swarm has not been discarded, it's going to trigger Swarm. So actually no, because we're going to have such a big Swarm, and I don't know how many times Apocalypse is going to get dropped. I'm going to change the Space Throne. Our Swarm army is going to be massive. I'm going to think we're going to be able to max out these 7 slots on this next turn while playing Apocalypse. Because now it's going to trigger us to discard our Swarm. That's going to become, I guess, 3. I may have been a little bit hopeful. There's the Green Goblin that I was referring to. I wish I had the Green Goblin unlocked, because like I said, I would play it every single time. Oh, that is not good. So they dropped... Okay. So they dropped Infinite. Where do they intend to play him? So Infinite being able to be resummoned by Ghost Rider. So that's 3 power. They have another 3. So it becomes, where are they going to play him? I think what we do... So 15, if they drop it here, then we win these 2. Because even with 3, what power could they have with another 3 drop that would be equivalent? I don't think they have anything that would compete 3 drop wise, because they're going to have to do Ghost Rider, and we have 15 and 12. Wherever they play Ghost Rider, they'll win that lane. Do we switch? Oh my gosh. Do we switch these? Oh my gosh. Do we switch these in case plays it here and then he plays just his 3 cost here to try and beat us with the 7. I don't know that it necessarily matters. So 10. Let's set it here and see how it goes. If he has like a Nova, maybe. Oh no, what is he doing? What is he doing here? Did he not think? He didn't. Oh, Danger Room. I forgot all about Danger Room. Oh, no. Oh, okay, so he forgot about my Swarm Army, I guess. In that he thought I was only going to be able to play, one large card to swing one of the 2 lanes, and that he was going to sneakily be able to steal this other one. So our Swarm Army did come in pretty handy, being able to drop, what was it, like 30 power on the last turn, is pretty nice. So we do have Swarm and Nakia in our hand. We have Lady Sif as well, Iron Man. The first one being Sanctum Sanctorum is not good for us because we want to swarm the board. We want to be able to, and then the Space Throne that's just nasty. Do I even worry about dropping Okoi? I don't think that I do. I think I let it just be a discard card, or discard fodder. And so Baxter Building becomes really, really powerful if Unit 0 doesn't have anything that's going to swing this lane over here. That like they can move into it, because it's going to give us 3 power over there. So I want to go ahead and... Do I want to go ahead and start buffing my cards up? I don't really want to drop a 1 power into this lane, though, is where I'm struggling. And so if I do that, I don't want to drop the Iron Man. I think I just pass with 2 energy remaining. They have an armor. It's okay. We're not destroying any cards. So they will have priority. At the end of the turn, transform. At the end of turn 3, transform into... Okay, never mind. So that was the end of turn. So it could have turned into a Sanctum Sanctorum situation where we would have won that one. We would have only had this space to play in. So now it becomes you have to win. You have to win at least one of these. If you lose both, then you lose the game anyways, but you'll lose the 3rd location. So we're going to have to balance our cards between the 2. And so we are going to drop our Nakia so that we can buff up our Swarm, and then we can start playing some of our discard cards, potentially. Or do we want to forego the Swarm Army this time? Because we have some pretty high power, low cost cards. What I could do would be I could drop Iron Man, and the next turn I can drop 3 cards, a 5, a 6, and a 6 power, to potentially swing one of these in our favor. Do I need to drop Iron Man here, though? Or do I just really stack it in one lane so that I can win multiple? I think I do. I think I'm going to stack it in one lane. I'm going to stack all of my resources. That way, if I win this lane, I win it by more than he wins this lane, hopefully. And it would, of course, we'd both have 3 power here, so we would tie. It'd come down to how much the one lane that we won, how much that difference would be. And so he dropped quite, oh, never mind. So he has Nightcrawler, which he'll be able to move into Sanctum Sanctorum. So we are going to have to win both of these lanes, which becomes really difficult. So, do we drop Morbius? We haven't really discarded anything this game. So, to win this lane, we're going to need, so that'd be 12, turn it into 16, and then this one, we're going to need a lot. I struggle. So 6 would... So 6 plus 3, if we turned one of these, would be 9. It'd be a 9-point swing. We would win it with just the Hell Cow. So do I... Do I hope that he drops his card in the right lane instead of the left? Actually, no, I don't think he does. I think he drops his card in this middle lane because we have Iron Man on the right. I think he's going to probably give that one up and drop cards here. So we're going to want to drop more resources there. It could be a wrong call. No, it was the right call. So he did drop more resources here. It's Professor X, which is not a good finisher card. We're not adding anything into the lane from our cards. So that's okay. I think we actually end up winning this. We do. It was not pretty, but we got there because we were able to read what he would probably do. And I don't know if I talked through why I thought he would play in the middle lane. Oh, yeah, I did. So because we had Iron Man, if I was in the reverse situation, I would think, you know what? They're going to probably drop a big unit in the lane with the Iron Man. I'm going to give that one up. I'm not going to compete for that. I'm going to compete for the other one, which they dropped in here. If they dropped something that was bigger than a Professor X, maybe they would have gotten it, but we ended up pulling it out. I will take it, but I think it was just luck. So ongoing effects on this left lane are doubled. So on this left lane, ongoing effects are doubled. That could be pretty good for our Morbius. So I think this first turn, I'm just going to pass. I don't have any cards that I really want to drop. We have the Space Throne, so it may end up being that we do, and we did draw into Swarm. So what we're going to want to do is next turn drop Nakia into dropping some of our discard cards. And so I think we just drop Scarlet Witch this turn so that we can open up the space that we have available to, 1, drop discard cards, 2, drop our Swarm army after everything is said and done, to kind of expand our lead and get our value across the board. So they do have an Okoi, so they're buffing up their deck, which is scary. Whenever you have that on turn 2, it's kind of scary to go against. At the end of turn 5, give all cards here +2 power. So I do go with Nakia in the middle lane to buff up our hand, especially since we already have Swarm. Ooh, and unfortunately they changed this location to with Storm, so it becomes hard to play. So I think we definitely drop our Morbius. We drop our Hell Cow so that we can start discarding cards and triggering and buffing our Morbius. So I think that's the play. Even if they have a Juggernaut here, we then have quite a bit of value in these other lanes that they're going to have to start competing against. I think we go ahead and snap. Am I super confident? No, not really. But am I necessarily scared just yet? No. So I don't know what kind of deck they're running. They could be doing a Devil Dinosaur Collector, but we don't have enough information. Most of the time, when you have a Storm, it's going to be like a Chavez, Jubilee, some kind of deck similar to that, where you have really high power cards, so like Infinite. I wouldn't be surprised if they skip this turn. And so, the question becomes, do we drop Swordmaster to just do ours? Do we do Moon Knight? So I think we do Swordmaster. I think we do Moon Knight. I changed my mind. I think we do Moon Knight, hope that it targets one of the swarms and not Swordmaster, because we're going to need to be able to play something next turn, but we also need to be able to discard consistently. And so to get the additional upside from Moon Knight, I want to play it this turn instead of next, where they discard a card from their hand. If they pass this turn, and so they do, maybe we target their Infinite here. Can we get lucky? Can we get the ultimate high roll? We get a Devil Dinosaur. So not as high rolly of a high roll. So looking here, we need to discard 2 cards to be able to tie this lane. So in which case we want to leave 2 cards in our hand. So what we can do, we're not going to be able to top 20 power anywhere. Actually, we could, can't we? So depending on what they run, if we drop our Swordmaster here, that'll be 21. We drop 1 Swarm, 1 Lady Sif. What that's going to do is allow us to discard 2 cards and buff up our Morbius. So that will allow us to push 1 lane. And then they're going to win a lane that's 20. If they drop it here, that's unfortunate. I apologize. If they drop it here, then we still push this lane. We win this one by more. I feel really confident in this line. So I expect the Infinite, and so it's going to be 19. They're going to win that lane by about 14 or 15. Oh no, I forgot. We only needed to leave 1 Swarm in our hand because it duplicates. And so we could have dropped 1 additional Swarm and had an additional 4 power out there on the lane. Not that it would make a difference, but in this game. But in a game, could it have made a difference? Yeah. So that's a small kind of finesse that I should have thought about. But being that we were able to duplicate it, we were able to push this lane, we were able to snag out the win from what they thought was a surefire victory. It would have been funny if the Moon Knight would have grabbed the Infinite and they would have just been deflated, but we were still able to pull it out. We did end up getting 8 cubes instead of 4. Okay, so our opening hand, we did get Subterranea, which is really, really unfortunate because we could draw into a lot of rocks. And with this deck, we need our good combos. We do have high value cards. Like the discard cards typically have a higher power value overall, but I guess they drew a couple of rocks. Hey, it's Spoons, and we now have the matching avatar. So congratulations on infinite rank. I'm not sure if you're like me and you hit it a while back and just switched over, or if you just hit it, but either way, congratulations. So looking at this, we do have Morbius, we have Swarm, we have Apocalypse, we just don't have any discard engines right now. So I think we play Morbius next turn. We did draw into the Space Throne. Depending on how many times we are able to discard Apocalypse before drawing into Scarlet Witch, I think we'll determine whether we keep the Space Throne or not. And so as is, we're going to drop Hellcow next turn unless we draw something. What in the world is this madness? So in that case, I think instead of the Hellcow, I think I drop Apocalypse, or drop Lady Sif to discard Apocalypse. And then we can kind of assess from there. I think we're gonna need to either drop. Oh boy. So if we. So what I'm thinking is, do we ever drop Nakia in this left lane? Next turn, we drop Iron Man in the left lane. That would become 1, 2, 3, 18. That would become 18. We'd have an Apocalypse. I don't think that's going to be enough. I think we're going to have to roll a little higher and drop our Hellcow this time. Hope that it discards Apocalypse, but not Iron Man, because we're gonna need to discard Iron Man. But we also need a high power card here for Iron Man to proc off of. So Nakia, that's a good first one, as long as we don't. Okay, so we got Swarm, which is not great in this scenario with given the limited space, but it is okay. We didn't discard our Iron Man. Discarding the Apocalypse would have been better. Oh, interesting. But then we have to give up so much in this turn that I don't think it becomes worth it necessarily. So I think we go with our original. We could drop the Scarlet Witch here, and then next turn follow it up with like Swarm, but that's just going to be less value than it is now, because we wouldn't be able to get the Iron Man or really anything out this turn if we end up dropping the Scarlet Witch. So we go Iron Man. Do they go Iron Man as well? Is that they do? That's beautiful. And so with this being the final turn, what do they have? They dropped an Okoi. So if they draw into a Chavez, I think we push here. If they drew into a Chavez, if they have a Hulk, I think we actually have a little bit of a downside. If they have a Hulk, we lose because it would have got the +2 potentially, as long as it was in the deck at the time. If they drew into Chavez, Chavez is there. If they have Magneto that had Okoi buff, I think we have a really, 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 really big chance at losing this. We're gonna just follow it up through all the way. If you win, you get the extra cube, and congratulations to you. But we end up pushing, not the path that I thought we would push, but we do end up pushing. So it is a draw. Turn 1, of course, we will skip again, but we do have an Okoi, so we're gonna drop that onto turn 2. And then hopefully draw into like Nakia, Swarm, some of our discard engines after that. But we will probably drop Okoi, followed by Morbius. Before we drop any kind of discard card, it would be Morbius. But it really depends on what we draw from here on out. So we do have the Scarlet Witch now. That is not enough to change our kind of game plan from the Okoi path. I don't remember if I said hello to this guy, so I'm just gonna do thumbs up something. I don't remember. I don't know if this is a real person or not. And so they did drop their Cable, which tells me they probably have a Nova Carnage, Devil Dinosaur deck. But what are they running otherwise? So I think we go ahead and we drop Morbius, we drop Scarlet Witch. I'm really afraid of the Green Goblin. I don't know why. Like, I've only seen it played once. So it's really, depending on your luck in pool 3, it's not like super common. But I just feel like everyone I'm playing against is going to have pulled it. I haven't pulled it. I'm kind of excited when I do pull it because it will... I have an idea for a deck that I can build kind of utilizing that card. So ongoing effects here are doubled. Had we still had Morbius in hand, that would have been really, 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 really powerful. Our Morbius could have been huge, bigger than an Infinite in some scenarios. So we have Ronin, which is actually pretty good. Like, that is super, super lucky. What Ronin does is ongoing +2 power for each card in your opponent's hand. If they are a Devil Dinosaur deck, they are going to have a lot of cards in their hand. So that's phenomenal. Like one of the best draws that I could have asked for. So I think what we do is we drop a Swordmaster here, because we're going to be able to continually buff up this card a little bit. So I don't think we have to worry about like an Iron Man. And I think Iron Man would be better in this lane, although we need to be aware of potential Devil Dinos being dropped over there, because a Devil Dino dropped over there is just going to destroy all of our chances. So I didn't notice, but what did they discard with Swordmaster? I should have been paying attention to it. I was too busy being impressed that we drew Ronin. So if they discarded something impactful with Swordmaster, they could be in a scenario where they don't have that one of their win conditions. So if they dropped Carnage and they've already played Deathlock, that's really, really bad for them. If they dropped Nova and they haven't Moon Girled it, if they dropped a Moon Girl, there's a lot of scenarios where that could be okay. So the question now becomes, do we drop Moon Knight instead of Colleen Wing? Colleen Wing could guarantee that we get 3 swarms instead of 2. Moon Knight could potentially discard one of their very high value cards. And so I think we do. I think we drop it over here on the left side. We are going to have at least 10 power to drop on another lane, which is big. That's a typical like 6 cost card that you can throw down. And with Swarm, we'd be able to throw it on the right-hand side. Even if they did Devil Dino over there, we're going to have the resources to drop Apocalypse here. I think that would have been the best play, but of course they did surrender. So a lot of scenarios of either we're winning by a lot and they retreat, or we think we're going to win and then we lose, just barely lose, and end up losing the 8 cube games. So very, very back and forth deck. So far it's been fun. I think it requires a lot of thinking and planning. Knowing what your opponent's going to play and where becomes really important with a deck like this, and being able to know how to navigate it. Swarm being in the opening hand is always nice. We also have Hell Cow. So I think what we do is drop Hell Cow next turn into the middle location, given that it's not like a negative location for us. I think we drop Hell Cow. We see what we discard. If we don't discard Moon Knight, I think we play Moon Knight next turn to target one of their cards. So it did end up throwing Swordmaster, so it's not the worst. And then we end up throwing Swarm, which is good. That's exactly what we want, so that we can have additional cards to discard. It becomes more likely that we discard Swarm from that point. So the next question becomes, ooh, that's important to know. So Mindscape, at the start of turn 6, we swap hands. So I'm going to want to drop my Swarm army before turn 6. I'm going to want to drop it on turn 5. So maybe like drop my Iron Man and my Swarms. And so I think we do drop Moon Knight here. If it hits Morbius, it's not ideal, but it'd be okay. No Morbius right now being 6 power, and so it'd be okay. That Juggernaut could have really messed us up had we dropped something in that lane and it shot it over into the Space Throne. It could have been really, really bad. So now I have a question that I need to pose to myself. Do we drop Nakia, let Nakia buff up all of our cards, and then we can drop Iron Man and our entire Swarm army next turn? Or do we drop Morbius this turn? So Morbius is what, 6? Are we getting more power out of dropping Nakia than 6? So 2, 4, 6, 8. And that 8 is going to be doubled. So we're getting 10 power out of dropping Nakia this turn. I guess 11 power if you include hers, versus Morbius. So I think it makes more sense to drop Nakia versus the other way around. Even though we are going to end up sending Morbius their way, I think it's okay. So on turn 6, we switch hands. Right now he has 5 cards. How do we think we want to do this? Do we want to... That one value card there really, really threw us. So do we want to do something like this and hope that they have a 6-drop? Do we want to... No, I think that's definitely it. I don't think we want to drop Scarlet Witch, because then we wouldn't be able to drop Iron Man. Why does he cost 7? Oh, so because Baron Mordo is why we drew him. We draw a card and increase its cost by 1. So he becomes a 7 cost card. So he's not even going to be able to play it. We send him nothing of value. So knowing that, he's going to have to top deck something good. Okay, yeah. So knowing that, he's going to have to top deck something really, really good to compete for any of the lanes. And I think we had a really, really solid chance there. So I'm not sure what kind of deck he was running or what this looked like. But reading the information and what we were going to give to the opponent, I thought we had a really good shot. All right, and so that is the last game that I'm going to play for tonight. I think this deck was interesting. Is this the worst deck possible to pilot? No. But is it going to compete with, like, is it as strong as the one I made yesterday? I don't think it's even close. I think Devil Dino is just more consistent. And then when you have the upside of having Mr. Negative into some really strong Iron Man and cards like that, I don't think it really even compares. So with this deck, we utilize the tools that we have. Morbius end up becoming pretty large in several games. Our Swarm came in pretty handy in several games. So it did what we wanted it to do. It's just the consistency. With discard, you are really up to the mercy of drawing those other engines to be able to continually discard your cards. And if you draw your discard engines but you don't have something like an Apocalypse, then you really don't have a good shot at winning. You don't have just the raw power to overcome the Lady Sif Ghost Rider into Infinite combo, those sort of things. You don't necessarily have the ability to counter those. So overall, I think the deck performed fairly well, but it just feels like it may be missing some kind of refinement. And so after the Space Throne is gone, we could take out Scarlet Witch and tech a different card in there, but I think we're going to want to draw or get a new card to make this better. So that could look like something like Gambit, where we discard a card and destroy one of theirs. So we destroy a card that's in their, like, on their board. And so that becomes really powerful on games where they have like maybe just a few cards, like a Devil Dino or something like that. And then if we have something where that'll trigger twice, it becomes even better. So maybe in the future, something like, just a loose idea, something like Wong, Lady Sif, Colleen Wing, Morbius, Swarm being our lowest cost card besides Morbius, so that if we draw Swarm and Colleen Wing, we can comfortably drop her, knowing that it's going to target Swarm, even if Swarm hasn't been targeted before, and then Wong making all of our things go off twice, all of our on reveal effects. So we could do Gambit twice, we could do Moon Knight twice, we could do all of these really powerful effects 2 times in that lane. And so I think that may be what would kind of like swing it, is getting a Wong and a Gambit and some of those other cards to make it a little more consistent. But that's just kind of a loose idea for as we draw those cards, kind of some brainstorming that I've already started doing. But overall, that is the deck of the day. Is it cold? No, it's Swarm. Again, I will see myself out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Make sure you leave a comment. Your feedback really helps me to know what you're enjoying and what I'm doing well, what I can improve upon, and it is just really greatly appreciated. So thank you guys for all of the support you've been giving me lately. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This has been TLSG. Later.